Welcome to Oxfam podcast. Today we'll discuss about Plan the Funds campaign that Oxfam in Bangladesh, Oxfam in Asia, and Cancer we are jointly doing together. And we have diverse panel of speaker today with us from Asian regions. Before going into this diverse group of discussion, I would like to make some notes about this Plan the Funds campaign. Why we are initiating this Plan the Funds campaign? As you know, Asia is the host of countries that have more than 4.7 billion people, and these are the people who are the most sufferer for climate change. Though we are contributing less in terms of carbon emissions, but we are the most affected, most vulnerable in terms of climate change perspectives. Under this Plan the Funds campaign, we are talking about the climate finance. Sometimes it says we are demanding climate finance, but it is not. It is our rights because we are not the contributor to the carbon emissions. That's why in the global north, who are basically producing carbon things, and they are the ultimate parts responsible countries of people who are making this climate change that has huge impact these Asian countries. Having said that, we want to discuss about this whole journey of Plan the Funds campaign, and we would like to hear from the youth, the expert, the climate specialist, the climate finance specialist about this term and issues and the things that we need to take forward. I'd like to welcome you all to this Oxfam Oxfam podcast. Hopefully, you'll enjoy that, and we would like to have some sort of real insight why we need climate finance from the Asian perspective. So, I would like to hear first of all Kamrujaman Jahid, here from the southern part of Bangladesh, and you know the real impact of climate change. From your perspective, how do you see the impact, and what are the key things for the climate finance perspective that you want to put on the table?
When we was in discussion in our dinner tables and all, so the theme was everyone was on a point that there was a lot of people are being discussed and are going to be discussed. Apart from that, as I am from the southeastern part of Bangladesh, and we all are from the largest delta of the world. It is a very climate vulnerable position. So my point is, I've been to a field work in our former head of the department in Musapur. They're living in front of the river, and they don't even know when they will again lost their homes. Okay, so there is a legal gap, first of all, and the gap is not recognizing the displaced persons. And apart from this, when it comes to the point of climate finance, so I think we should first recognizing the people, like they're very vulnerable. We should work on them.
Yes, we'll come to you again. So from Musapur, we want to go to the Sri Lanka. So we have with us Upeka, who has come here in Bangladesh to learn, connect, and depict different sort of things. If I would like to ask from your Sri Lankan perspective, how do you see the impact in your country, and as an youth, how would you like to take this forward to the global table?
And I see this as a triangle. So it's climate vulnerable community, climate migrants who doesn't even have a right to say climate refugees, and getting into climate driven slums. And there is this equilibrium of climate justice and climate finance. And as an impact entrepreneur and a startup person who is developing, seeing a problem statement and solving. So we have our own issues in climate finance, pitching to investors and getting the right, including for impact businesses. So in Sri Lanka, we are actually coming out with a strategy for climate finance, especially for banking sectors, to give low percent interest for impact-driven businesses to encourage them to solve this problem. And encouraging climate impact investors come and build on these climate bonds. So we could have it. And after seeing all that problem statement, it was very emotional. I would say I was there. I couldn't even breathe. And there was a small child who saw me and he's like, he communicated in your language and then it was translated. And that emotional factors, he was like, do you want me to take you out?
Thank you. So I would like to come to Dr. Subarno Boria, who is the professor of Department of International Business, University of Dhaka. Sir, You have a long experience in terms of climate finance, starting from teaching and to connecting the communities as well as the global negotiation. So the term we are using currently, the plans the funds, ultimately the finance we need for the community. How we can ensure that from the global south to north, particularly if you talk about the plan the funds campaign title perspective?
I think one of the most important challenges we face in in the negotiation stage and also attracting enough funds from the global north is we are not working together and as much as we need. So at the moment, if you, from my experience, I see that when at the negotiation table in COPs, you go there, you see that African countries are together and placing their needs, and they are all together and pushing for changes. But in terms of Asia, it's not happening there. There is always a political angle into this. So regionalism and collectivism is the key to get more funds. And without this, we cannot do that. Particularly in terms of South Asia, I'd say we don't have collectivism yet, right? In terms of climate negotiations, there are political elements in it. But if we cannot do this, I can tell you that Bangladesh alone or Sri Lanka alone or India alone cannot really do this, cannot get what we want as a climate vulnerable group. Secondly, as you said, that about the plan the funds, I would more suggest that to promote this idea as plan the just fund. We don't need funds that are unjust, that are unfair, that are unethical, that promote systemic injustice.
Thank you, sir. We have with us Rabia Begum, who is the Executive Director of SDS. Madam, sir was asking the just fund. It's not only the funds, just fund, that is equal.
When we talk about finance and the finance is justified finance, we cannot actually say in the community level. You know, all the disasters come with various critical situation to those community, but especially women are the most vulnerable community in terms of all the disasters. But we cannot see the special allotment or special opportunity for women community. So we cannot say this is actually justified financing. Though finance which they committed, some we get, but those are actually mostly the debt finance. So we want actually without debt and the gender justice based financing.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to come to Dr. Imran, who is currently working as a head of climate justice and natural rights research at Oxfam in Bangladesh. Imran bhai, when you talk about plan the funds or climate funds from the global north to global south, data and evidence is the crucial things that all the time this part of the country, part of the world, we failed to showcase or connect. How do you see this and how we can improve there?
I can answer the question into three different components. One is climate science, another one is climate justice, another one is climate finance negotiations. If we consider these three through the lens of science and evidence, then how far we have progressed. See, there was once time like there were climate denials, like there are people like who didn't believe in climate change. So now we passed that phase and science is established, then climate change is happening and we have enough tools to even track and progress the climate change, how the climate change is happening, like at what stage we are. So there's the climate science and evidence. But how about climate justice? I think that's the very question that needs to document it through the lens of science and evidence. Let me just quote from Upekha's comments. Like she said, she first-hand witnessed the sufferings from the slum people. Like, so how we actually documented these sufferings, that could be used as a tools for the climate finance negotiations. Whether we have come up with a setup or with the tools to bring this and document this and account it, that can be translated into climate finance needs or demands? I think that's the thing we need to do. How best our science actually evidently pulling this information into the global, to the global north, into the it's us. It's collective work. That's why I'm saying like it's a collective force that actually needed from the CSO, from the academia, even from the community themselves. All should contribute to one system to deliver evidence-based, science-based approach, so that like the way we have overcome the climate denials, we must overcome the climate justice denials. So I want to put my hope on that. That's why I want to advocate like the tools and science that have been using, like CSO, like Oxfam. We have come up with the loss and damage kind of dashboard where you have these agglomerated things. Like there is a scope to harness the community lands into the platform. There is a scope of scientific exercise, like using earth observation, remote sensing, artificial intelligence kind of things. And there is another platform for the negotiators, for the decision makers. They can harness the result that actually came up through the collective input of community lands, science, and evidence. I think if you can do this, not only for one or two instances, but for the whole global south, then there would be a cumulative documentation which can support the global climate change negotiation. Ultimately, who do you want to support? It's the very community who actually suffering for the climate change. So if our science, if our evidence actually fail to gather that insights, then I think there will be no success. That's what we need to do, and science and evidence could be a great tool, and we cannot avoid it.
Mustafa Talpur, thank you so much for joining us. And you are leading Oxfam from the regional perspective on advocacy and campaign. We all the time to see an equal world. And when you see the current landscape, like the rich country, who are the most polluters, and they are sometimes very reluctant even to understand the suffering we have right now, that is because of them. And even currently, we need to do a campaign and massive work on the plan the funds.
Yeah, I think they are held in a systemic failure by the current global political system and order to recognize the climate challenge and the climate finance issues. So there is a highly unequal carbon emissions by the global north countries. They have been historically doing it, and their companies and the rich individuals through their investments, through their consumption pattern, investing in coal, or their private lifestyles using private jets. Or they have this historical responsibility to invest to address the climate change problems that is being caused in the developing countries like Bangladesh, like Pakistan, like Timor-Leste, and we see that disproportionate impact that the vulnerable communities are facing in these countries. There are floods, there are massive storm surges, there is a sea intrusion, there is a cyclone, there are droughts, there are heat waves, and these people cannot wait. It's an urgent need of climate finance, that is public finance, and the polluters must pay. The fossil fuel companies, the individual rich people, they must aid into the kitty, enlarge the pie. There has been commitments, but those commitments are massively failed to deliver on. So through Plan the Fund campaign, the aim is that the young people across Asia amplify their voice.
The politicians, the expert also.
Experts, the academicians, the southern negotiators that go into the COP next year. Brazil, as they have done systematically, as I said, failed. We need 1.3 trillion US dollars annually to address the climate change, and most of that part is needed by the frontline communities to adopt, withstand the shock, and build their resilience. Therefore, it's the responsibility of rich individuals in our countries and global south, but the rich companies, the northern governments, to pay their fair share in the climate finance so this issue can be resolved or can be addressed.
Thank you so much. We'll wrap it up, but I have to have a very single one-line recommendation, suggestion, or commitment from each of you. For example, if I would like to ask Jahad, what your commitment for climate finance?
My commitment is like, first of all, I want to clarify one thing, that we are getting at least some money, right? So I want a system that is very much transparent.
Over to Sri Lanka, Upekha. So you are an entrepreneur also building an ecosystem. What exactly would you like to do to ensure the climate justice and that can bring a justice for climate finance for the Asia?
If I say like the place that I've taken to myself as an impact entrepreneur when I started my career is seeing all the cycle of unsustainability practices. Is the reason that I pivoted from a chemist to this. Because as a scientist, whatever we create is not being used in an ethical manner when it comes to industrialization. So as an impact entrepreneur and seeing all what is going through, I see it's like an algorithm that is showing me. So building an impact ecosystem model to sustain that equilibrium between human and environment is the pledge that I've taken. And if somebody is focused on investing, either it's global north or global south rich people, to this impactful thing, it's not even about, they being happy or these people being privileged. It's about, as you said, not the moon. We have to sustain this.
Dr. Suborno, how do you see the future?
For my part, my commitment is looking at those and evaluating the financing models from the just aspect, and also my second commitment is, as I said before, that we need capacity to be able to better negotiate. That will be driven by data and evidence, as Imran may say. So I'm into more building the capacity of the future generation for whom we always talk about sustainable development.
Iran Bhai, you are talking about science evidence and that has to meet and then that has to go to a negotiate table. So what you would like to do from individual perspective and organization perspective like Oxfam in Banaras?
I want to raise an advocation, movement kind of, voice. Let's say definitely with the science and evidence for sure. As long as the plan, the fund, concerns, like I would urge to the global north, let's say, you have been putting into the, climate finance pot in a million, but it's even not the time for billion. Like Mustafa said, 1.3 trillion was the urge annually. So I would say not billion, focus on trillions. Only then, the distributional justice and the responsibility, justice for the from the justice of responsibility would be served. And when we would be able to make that, then the climate justice would be served. I want to be hopeful and optimistic.
Thank you. Rabia, what is one of the key messages from your heart that you want to really give to the global north, who are the main countries behind the climate injustice?
Yes, I want to say that please do the right right thing. I mean, gender justice based activities to the community.
To make a more inclusive society.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Because the most vulnerable communities.
Thank you, Abba. Mustafa Bhai, what's your call to actions under this Banda Fund?
I think in this struggle we are together. So we are in the same boat. So if the global north and rich people don't care about it, we are going to sink together. So this is important that they must understand, and there's not much time left. It's a warming bird. It's a wired bird. So that they are not listening it. I think what I can commit of as we can do, we'll try to connect the young people across Asia with the global movements. And not all people in the global north are responsible. There are the rich people. There are also poor working class people. They are not contributing that much. So I think that poor people, working class people, either in global north or south, have to come together to save this planet. That's for everybody. Work for justice and fairness. and we collectively support these young people to connect worldwide and raise their voices. So that powerful voice would make a change.
Thank you so much. Thank you all of you for joining this Oxfam podcast. Those who are listening to us, this is very, very important, crucial discussion that the climate change, the impact that we have, not only in global south, global north, that Talpurbai was mentioning. If we cannot tackle now, we'll sing all together. That's why from Oxfam in Bangladesh, Oxfam in Asia and Cancer, we are doing this massive campaign that is called Plant the Funds, where we want to tell, we need to really, really articulate the evidence through the scientific lens and others, and that need to be properly documented, promoted, and placed in the table when COP or some sort of negotiation is taking place in different parts of the world. Let's join hands together. Let's pump the funds.